Okay, next point, God, whales, and Jonah. Secular historians and scientists who have nothing to do with God have recorded many occasions where humans have been ingested by sharks and whales and live to tell about it. The interesting result is that one man, and I'm going to read this to you, I have it all out for you, the entire story. In fact, I'll just read it because of our time. But if a person requests information from the Encyclopedia Britannica, you can call them and ask them to mail you a little report if you bought a set of encyclopedias. And if you ask them the question of, is it possible for a whale to swallow Jonah, you will get in the mail a four-page report, the bulk of which consists of information taken from the article I'm going to read you. Okay, and here is the article. In February of 1891, the whale ship Star of the East was in the vicinity of the Falkland Islands. They were in the lookout, sighted a large whale 3 miles away. 2 boats were lowered in a short time. One of the harpooners was enabled to spear the fish. The second boat attacked the whale, but was upset by a lash of its tail. And the men thrown into the sea, one being drowned, and another, James Bartley, having disappeared, could not be found. The whale was killed. In a few hours, the great body was lying by the ship's side, and the crew was busy with axes and spades, removing the blubber. They worked all day and part of the night. The next day, they attached some tackle to the stomach, which was hoisted on deck. The sailors were startled by spasmodic signs of life, and inside was found the missing sailor, doubled up and unconscious. He was laid on the deck, treated to a bath of seawater, which soon revived him. But his mind was not clear. And he was placed in the captain's quarters, where he remained 2 weeks, a raving lunatic. He was kindly and carefully treated by the captain and the officers of the ship, and gradually regained possession of his senses. At the end of the 3rd week, he had entirely recovered from shock and resumed his duties. During his sojourn in the whale's stomach, Bartley's skin, where exposed to the action of the gastric juice, underwent a striking change. His face, neck, and hands were bleached to a deadly whiteness and took on the appearance of parchment. Bartley affirmed he would have lived inside his house of flesh until he starved, for he lost his senses through fright and not from lack of air. Bartley was also said to have explained that after being hurled, the water foamed about him, evidently from the whale's tail. Then he was drawn along into the darkness and found himself in a great place where the heat was unbearable. Scientists have found out that the insides of a whale are approximately 104 to 108 degrees, that the gastric juices are enough to bleach but not enough to digest flesh completely, lest the inside of the whale would become eaten up by its own juices. So it's interesting that when Jonah, and we don't know how far out, they could have been just outside of Joppa. They could have just gotten out when God threw the storm, but it doesn't matter. But whatever, Jonah was in the whale 3 days and 3 nights. We don't know if God sent the whale up to the very corner of Turkey, Syria right up there, and spit him out and he walked overland, or if the whale took a rapid trip down through the Suez Canal that wasn't there and went up the Tigris River and spit him out right in front of Nineveh. But most likely, he was pure white when he got to Nineveh. Probably looked like a freak, bleached by the gastric juices of this whale. In addition to the data on whales, there are a number of links between the prophet Jonah and Nineveh, for those of you that like biblical history. Gabeline cites a few. The seal that was excavated that belonged to Amasis II of Egypt, he reigned from 570 to 526, shows with remarkable clarity a man emerging from a sea monster. So that was by 570, that was already in that area, well known. Also, it's interesting that Nineveh has for centuries been called Nebi-Yunus, which is Jonah's mound. And interesting too, Nineveh worshipped the fish god Dagon. And so if a fish showed up, a giant one, on the banks of the Tigris River and went, and a white man, bleached, came out, it would have been very moving to the people. To us too.